Prepper, USA. The town of Prepper was founded in the 1880s in New Mexico, USA, and was a result of railroad construction that facilitated the transportation of goods and people through the desert regions of the area. The railroad tracks laid during that time opened new horizons for trade and communication, allowing small settlements to grow rapidly. Prepper was one such settlement, serving as an important transport station for people and goods. It was located at the crossroads of several key trade routes, making it a vital hub on the maps of travelers and merchants. However, in the 1920s, the railroad route was changed, with the new path running through other larger cities, significantly reducing traffic and trade through Prepper. This was an initial blow to its economy, which was only exacerbated by further economic difficulties. Despite attempts to attract new settlers and improve infrastructure, the town gradually fell into decline. Over time, many of its buildings were abandoned and destroyed. Prepper became a true symbol of how small towns, losing their significance due to changes in transportation routes and economic conditions, can disappear. Today, Prepper stands as merely a monument to a bygone era, with its remnants found in the form of ruined buildings and dilapidated roads that once connected the town to a more developed world. The locals long ago left this corner of the earth, leaving behind only memories of how this town was once an important point on the map. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat is not just an abandoned city, but a symbol of the tragedy that shook the world. Founded in 1970, the city was designed as an ideal place for the workers of the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Pripyat was one of the most modern cities in the Soviet Union, with the latest technologies, highly developed infrastructure, and residential areas that met the latest standards. The city was equipped with everything necessary for comfortable living: wide streets, parks, schools, hospitals, and even its own amusement park. At the time of evacuation in 1986, the city had about 50,000 residents. However, on April 26th of that year, the Chernobyl disaster occurred when an explosion in the reactor caused massive radioactive contamination. In response, a decision was made to evacuate all residents. People left their homes, often leaving behind personal belongings, clothing, and even pets. The evacuation was hurried, and the city was left as it was at the time of the tragedy. Today, Pripyat is a ghost town where radioactive contamination prevents former residents from returning. Its empty streets, ruined houses, and abandoned amusement park remind us of the horrors of the nuclear disaster and serve as an important historical reminder for future generations. Pripyat has become a kind of open-air museum, attracting tourists and researchers who come to witness the consequences of one of the most terrifying technological disasters in human history. Memorials to this tragic event remain in the memory of not only Ukrainians, but the entire world. Centralia. The history of Centralia, Pennsylvania, began as an ordinary mining settlement in the 19th century. The town was situated in the center of coal deposits, and as it developed, it became an important coal mining center. For many years, the town thrived, with schools, shops, and even theaters. However, in 1962, tragedy struck when a fire accidentally ignited in one of the coal pits, penetrating the network of mine tunnels. The fire was unsuccessfully extinguished and continued to spread, forcing authorities to close the mines and evacuate the population. The problem was compounded by the fact that the fire continued to burn underground for decades, threatening the safety and lives of local residents. Due to high temperatures and toxic gases escaping from the ground, Centralia became a dangerous place to live. In the 1980s, many families began to leave the town, and ultimately, in the 1990s, the entire town was evacuated. Now it is practically a deserted place, with only a few houses and abandoned roads remaining. The fire that once ignited the earth continues to burn to this day, and estimates suggest it will continue for several more decades. Centralia remains a monument to human error and a reminder of how negligence in resource extraction can lead to catastrophic consequences. This site has become a symbol of ecological disaster and senseless sacrifices made in the name of coal extraction. Coleman, South Africa. The town of Coleman was founded in the late 19th century in the territory of the Republic of South Africa after significant deposits of gold and diamonds were discovered. This opened up new opportunities for economic growth, and mines and manufacturing facilities began to rapidly develop in what would become the town. By the early 20th century, Coleman had become an important economic center, attracting many workers from various parts of the country. The economic prosperity of the town lasted for several decades. However, as is often the case with mining towns, when the deposits began to be exhausted, the economic situation sharply deteriorated. In the 1930s, many mines were closed, and residents began to leave the town in search of work and a better life elsewhere. Since then, Coleman has become empty, and its buildings have been consumed by sand and vegetation. Its very existence serves as a reminder of how quickly economic resources can be depleted in regions dependent on a single industry. Today, this town stands as a reminder of the complexity and unpredictability of life in mining settlements, where prosperity can swiftly turn to decline once resources are exhausted. The remaining ruins remind us of how quickly greatness can vanish when economic flows dry up. Greta, Australia. Greta, located in Australia, was founded as a mining settlement in the early 20th century when coal deposits were discovered in the region. The town rapidly developed as the coal industry required a large workforce, and coal mining became the primary source of income for local residents. However, as in other mining towns, when the coal mines began to close, Greta started to lose its economic base. Soon the town became desolate, and much of the population left for more prosperous regions. Today, Greta looks like a ruined mining village, covered with the remains of houses and buildings that resemble a post-apocalyptic film set. Despite its abandonment, Greta attracts tourists and researchers interested in the history of the coal industry and its impact on people's lives. Greta is an example of how towns can be quickly forgotten if they lose their economic foundation. All that remains of this town are dilapidated buildings and roads that no longer see human traffic. Phoenix, USA. The city of Phoenix, located in Arizona, was founded in the late 19th century. In the early 20th century, a water source was found here, which laid the foundation for agriculture and the establishment of the settlement. Phoenix grew as one of the key agricultural centers of the region, and its strategic location encouraged the influx of new settlers. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, the city's economy, like many others, fell into decline. In the midst of the economic crisis, farmers and residents began to leave Phoenix, and by the 1940s, the city had become a deserted place. Unemployment in the region rose, and agriculture, which was the main industry, was on the verge of collapse. Interestingly, Phoenix became a symbol of how an economic crisis can destroy entire settlements, forcing people to abandon their homes and possessions. This was painful for many families whose lives were intricately tied to this small but once prosperous town. Today, all that remains of the city are ruined buildings that remind us of its former glory, while a few locals still hold memories of the thriving town that once existed in this place. Occasionally, despite its abandonment, Phoenix attracts the attention of researchers, historians, and photographers seeking unique stories of ruined towns. Body, USA. The town of Body in California was founded in 1859 after gold deposits were discovered in the area. By the 1880s, the town had become a thriving center of gold mining, attracting thousands of gold seekers dreaming of striking it rich during the gold rush. Body was one of the most famous towns during this period, with restaurants, saloons, shops, and a plethora of cultural events. However, as with most mining towns, with the drop in gold prices and the depletion of local resources, Bodie faced economic decline. By 1910, the town was completely deserted, and many of its buildings began to decay due to lack of maintenance. Despite this, many structures remain in decent condition thanks to California's dry climate, which prevented the decay of wood and other building materials. Today, Body is a popular tourist destination. Visitors can see well-preserved homes, schools, shops, and even visit the old mines where gold miners once toiled. The town has become a unique historical landmark, where the past seems to have frozen in time. Its streets evoke the atmosphere of a bygone era and allow one to imagine how the town lived during its peak. Body is not just an abandoned town. It is a kind of museum where every brick and building holds its own story, making it an important site for historical research. Calico, USA. Calico was founded in 1881 in California during the gold rush when rich silver deposits were discovered in the region. The town quickly became a center for silver mining, and its population grew significantly. Soon, new metal processing technologies began to develop, along with infrastructure, schools, shops, and businesses. At its peak, more than 1,200 people lived there. However, with the drop in silver prices in the 1890s, the town began to decline. Its mines started to close, and residents gradually left in search of better living conditions. By the early 20th century, Calico was deserted, and most buildings were destroyed or demolished. During this time, the town attracted the attention of several entrepreneurs, but its significance remained minimal. In the 1950s, the town was restored as a historical monument and tourist attraction. In recent decades, Calico has attracted tourists who can see many old buildings preserved as they were at the end of the 19th century. These buildings serve as a reminder of California's turbulent past and the gold rush that drew thousands of people in search of wealth. This town exemplifies how history can be preserved and turned into cultural heritage, drawing attention to important moments of the past. Additionally, Calico has become a popular spot for photographers and adventure seekers, contributing to its preservation and exploration. Port Royal, Jamaica. Port Royal, located on the coast of Jamaica, was founded in the 17th century and became an important trading and pirate center. The town was known for its luxurious buildings, ports and treasury that attracted many sailors, traders, and pirates. Port Royal was the center of Caribbean trade and an important hub for British colonies, but it was also known for its reputation as the pirate capital. It was filled with pubs, gambling, and smuggling, attracting many adventurers and pirates of the time. However, in 1692, a powerful earthquake caused a significant portion of the town to be submerged and consumed by the sea. This event effectively ended the history of Port Royal as a thriving trading center. Instead of continuing to develop, the town found itself underwater and its key trade routes disappeared. Today, Port Royal represents an archaeological zone where scientists continue to explore the remains of the destroyed city to better understand how this important trading post lived throughout its existence. The destruction caused by the earthquake left Port Royal in obscurity for many years, but its ruins attract scholars and archaeologists studying Jamaica's maritime history and culture. Ehrenberg, Germany. Ehrenberg is a small town in southeastern Germany that was abandoned after World War II. In 1944 to 1945, the town was heavily damaged by Allied bombings, and after the war, local residents began to leave, leaving behind only ruins. Over the following decades, the area where Ehrenberg once stood became almost completely deserted. Gradually, the ruined buildings were overtaken by nature, and the once thriving village turned into a place of remembrance of the war and its consequences. Today, this site is known as a memorial zone, where tours are conducted to highlight the aftermath of the war and the history of the region. With each new archaeological discovery, new pages of this tragic history are revealed, attracting the attention of researchers and tourists eager to learn more about post-war Germany's fate. Ehrenberg has become an important reminder of the destructive consequences of military conflicts and the history of ruined towns that have been forgotten but still hold significance. Palmyra, Syria. Palmyra, an ancient city in central Syria, was one of the largest trade and cultural centers of the ancient world. In antiquity, Palmyra was renowned for its architecture, magnificent temples, columns, and exquisite palaces that reflected the grandeur of a civilization thriving at the crossroads of various cultures. The city has survived numerous wars and changes throughout its history, remaining an important trading hub on the route between East and West. However, in 2015, Palmyra was captured by the Islamic State terrorists, leading to the brutal destruction of the city's cultural heritage. The terrorists destroyed many monuments, temples, and historical buildings, including the famous colonnades and the temples of Baal-Shemin and Bel. These acts of destruction shocked the world, as Palmyra was one of the most valuable archaeological sites on the planet. After the city's liberation by the Syrian army in 2017, Palmyra was severely damaged. However, despite the destruction, it remains an important part of cultural heritage and a symbol of resilience and hope for restoration. Restoration efforts to rebuild the city have begun, but many monuments will be impossible to recreate, and Palmyra will forever remain in history as an example of how war can impact humanity's cultural heritage. Wufeng, China. Wufeng was built in the 1960s as part of an ambitious urbanization and industrialization plan for China. It was one of many examples of so-called ghost towns, built in remote and sparsely populated areas to stimulate economic development and create jobs. The city's construction aimed at developing industry and generating employment in a remote part of the country. However, since the 1980s, as the economic situation changed and manufacturing capacity became exhausted, the town began to lose its appeal to residents. It became a typical example of failed experiments in Chinese urban planning, where vast resources were invested in creating cities that ultimately failed to attract enough people for their full development. Wufeng became one of those failed towns that was eventually abandoned, leaving behind only empty buildings, unfinished roads, and encroaching vegetation. Today, the town serves as a symbol of economic experiments that did not pay off and is a reminder of the risks of large urban projects that can turn into failures. Hashima, Japan. Hashima, also known as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island, is a small island in Japan that was a major coal mining center in the 20th century. Hashima was so named due to its unique shape resembling a warship. The island housed a coal mine that supplied coal to nearby cities. In the mid-20th century, more than 5,000 people lived on the island, making it one of the most densely populated places on the planet, with a population density exceeding that of Manhattan. When the coal deposits on the island were depleted in the 1970s, coal mining ceased and the island was abandoned. Today, Hashima is a popular tourist destination, attracting those interested in abandoned places and industrial heritage. Tourists can visit the buildings left behind from the miners' dormitories and stroll through the deserted streets, giving the island a unique atmosphere of mystery and neglect. Hashima has become a symbol of Japan's industrial past and an example of how quickly natural resources can be depleted, along with entire communities based on the coal industry. Mahenda, New Zealand. Mahenda was founded in the 19th century and long served as one of the central agricultural hubs of the region. The town emerged at the junction of several key transport routes, which facilitated its development. Mahenda was also known for its manufacturing capabilities, including dairy and meat processing, as well as other agricultural enterprises. However, in the 1960s, with the development of other towns and the emergence of new technologies, Mahenda gradually began to lose its economic appeal. Soon, with the loss of agricultural viability and the closure of several major manufacturing facilities, the town started to become desolate. Eventually, Mahenda was abandoned, and its houses and streets became empty. Today, this place represents an interesting example of a vanished rural settlement, attracting the attention of archaeologists and historians. The town has been overtaken by vegetation, and the houses, now in ruins, serve as a reminder of how economic changes can impact the lives of small settlements. Mahenda, although abandoned, represents an important fragment of New Zealand's rural history. Victoria City, Canada. Despite its current existence, the city of Victoria has undergone several phases of decline. In the 19th century, it was an important port and trading center, as well as one of the main cities in British Columbia. Victoria was known for its thriving economy, and its harbor served as a key point for transporting goods between Canada and other parts of the world. However, over time, its significance began to diminish. Other cities, such as Vancouver, became more prominent trade centers, and Victoria began to lose its economic status. By the end of the 20th century, the city had lost many of its old functions but did not completely disappear. Today, Victoria remains an important cultural and tourist center in Canada, attracting many visitors with its historic buildings, picturesque landscapes, and the atmosphere of an old town. Despite the loss of its former influence, Victoria continues to thrive as a vibrant city, preserving elements of the past and attracting the attention of historians, antique enthusiasts, and travelers.